Let me paint a picture for you. Feel free to close your eyes or look at the next few slides to help you visualize. In an organization, amidst the hum of productivity and the occasional flurry of excitement, there sits a learning and development professional, you. Your workspace is adorned with colorful charts, motivational quotes, family pictures, and shelves lined with books on leadership, coaching, training design, and personal development. You're known throughout your organization for your dedication to helping others grow and succeed. Whether it's designing training programs, conducting workshops, or providing coaching, you pour your heart and soul into your work, always striving to empower your colleagues to reach their full potential. Yet, as you meticulously plan each learning initiative and schedule every training session, you often find yourself neglecting your own development. Despite your passion for learning, you struggle to carve out time in your busy schedule to invest in yourself. It's the early hours of the morning, and you're enjoying that first sip of coffee or tea at your desk before most of your coworkers start their day. During these precious moments, you attempt to steal a few minutes for your own learning, devouring articles, watching webinars, and exploring online courses. But as the day progresses, your time becomes consumed by the demands of your role. Meetings pile up, emails flood your inbox, and urgent requests clamor for your attention. Each moment spent supporting others' learning needs leaves little room for your own growth. Despite your best intentions, you often find yourself putting your own development on the back burner, convinced that there will be time for it later. Yet as days turn into weeks and weeks into months, that elusive later never seems to arrive. And so, amidst the chaos of your daily responsibilities, you continue to pour your energy into nurturing the growth of those around you, all the while yearning for the chance to prioritize your own learning journey. It's a delicate balancing act, one that requires resilience, determination, and a steadfast commitment to the pursuit of knowledge, both for yourself and for others. Does it ever feel like that for you or someone on your team? We are so focused on carving out time to develop others that we don't do the same for ourselves. The other question that I ask myself in this space too is if I don't make the time to grow and invest in myself, how can I truly make an impact for others? If these questions or challenges pop up for you, then you're in the right place. My name is Jen Recla. I've worked in the learning and organizational development space for over 10 years. I'm currently a leadership coach and consultant with my own practice, Recla Coaching and Consulting. Before this newest adventure, I worked as the director of organizational learning and development in Colorado Access, which is a nonprofit health plan. And my role there was to lead the learning strategy for employees and providers, and that included leading programs, facilitating workshops, coaching, and mentoring. The journey I'm about to share with you today is based on my 5 years of leading the team in the picture of Colorado Access and how deliberately investing in our own growth led to improved outcomes for the rest of our employees. I plan on walking you through 4 basic areas. We're going to talk about barriers, what gets in the way of nurturing our growth, some foundations for setting up your team or your teams for success. We're going to talk through some interventions that we implemented to invest in our individual and collective team growth. And then what we learned along the way, where we made some fumbles and some course corrections to help improve our outcomes. And I will mention there is a participant guide that you can download and pull from. And I'm going to mention some different activities that you'll be able to do along the way. And also in that participant guide, if you'd like to connect with me or anyone on the team, there's some LinkedIn QR codes as well. So for your first worksheet activity, I want you to answer the question, why is investing in your development important to you? How about for your team? Why are you watching this session? What are you hoping to gain today? So go ahead and pause, answer those questions, and then come back. As we dive into this topic, I think it's important to call out that investing time in ourselves and our teams is not easy. I'm betting you got into this field because you wanted to help people. And when we're in the business of helping others, we often put ourselves last. So, as I walk through various barriers we all experience with nurturing our growth, think of the one that stands out to you. Which one gets in the way the most? And capture that in your handout. Then, as we talk through different solutions, mark down the one or ones you think will help combat them the most. So, digging into barriers, I think we can all agree that time constraints is one of the most common barriers. Simply not having enough time. Busy schedules, demanding workloads, and personal responsibilities can make it challenging to prioritize our own learning and development. On top of that, prioritizing others is what we tend to do first. Many individuals in our field, we prioritize the growth and development of others over our own. While supporting others is important, neglecting our own growth can lead to burnout and stagnation. We just might not feel motivated. Sometimes we lack the motivation or drive to invest in our own growth. This could be due to feeling overwhelmed, uninspired, or unsure of where to start. There could be a fear of failure. It can hold us back from taking risks and pursuing new learning experiences, or self doubt, negative self talk. It can undermine our confidence and prevent us from taking proactive steps towards our goals. Could be that we lack resources, limited money, budget, time, limited access to educational opportunities that can hinder our ability to invest in our own growth. And then we might think we don't need it. I've arrived. I have the position that I want, so I can finally take a break. Or we may feel nervous to step out of our comfort zone. It's easy to get comfortable in our current roles and routines, which can prevent us from seeking out new learning opportunities. With time, we have to change our relationship and focus on not letting it control us. We have control of it. When prioritizing others, we have to find ways to see our own development as just as important as others. We have to identify what engages and strengthens us, what keeps us motivated. And then, with a lack of resources, we got to get creative about how we utilize what little resources we may have. With a fear of failure, finding ways to reframe it as a learning opportunity, turning that self doubt, that negative self talk into self love. And with the comfort zone, stepping out of the comfort zone, thinking that we've arrived, there's a reason we call learning a journey versus a destination. There are always new places to go and new things to uncover. So, for you, as I went through those different barriers, mark the one or ones that exist for you. Are they the same or different than your team? Is there anything you potentially could do to combat those barriers? If you aren't sure, stay tuned for some things that worked for us. But go ahead, take a pause in this video and answer those questions in the handout. By recognizing and addressing these barriers, we can create a supportive environment that fosters our own growth and development. How do we do that? Let's take a slight detour from barriers and let's talk about developmental psychology. So, if you aren't familiar with this term, it's a branch of psychology that focuses on studying how individuals grow, develop, and change across their lifespan. It examines the physical, cognitive, emotional, and social changes that occur from infancy through old age, as well as the factors that influence development. Child development is marked by physical, cognitive, and emotional milestones with rapid growth and learning. It often follows very predictable stages that are guided by biology and external influences. In contrast, adult development is more nuanced, focusing on cognitive complexity and self awareness. Developing as an adult, it involves qualitative shifts in the way we think. And these are shaped by intentional reflection and experiences, a variety of experiences. So, children Adults have a greater capacity for abstract thinking, emotional regulation, and the ability to navigate some very complex social dynamics. While childhood development is more linear, adult development is characterized by ongoing growth that's influenced by our choices, by our experiences, and intentional learning. So, the big idea with all of that is we have to be intentional about our growth as adults. Intention in personal growth, it shapes how we show up for others. By consistently working on ourselves, we contribute positively to our relationships, modeling growth, and creating an environment that encourages others to embark on their own journeys of development. Reflecting back on my Colorado Access experience, I want to start off by emphasizing how fostering a growth mindset from the beginning was critical to our success. At the beginning of my time with the organization almost 5 years ago, while I was vaguely familiar with the concept of a growth mindset, I didn't fully comprehend its depth. Initially, I believed my love for learning was evidence of enough of possessing a strong growth mindset. However, a growth mindset goes beyond mere enthusiasm for learning. It's about embracing challenges, viewing failure as a stepping stone rather than a roadblock, and continually developing one's skills and intelligence. It involves being comfortable with failure, accepting imperfections, and embracing the journey of continuous improvement. So, as you embark on your journey in this space, I encourage you to start by embracing and strengthening your growth mindset. And there's another a worksheet activity that you can do in your handout to get a sense of where are you with your growth mindset. There's a mini self assessment, and you can gauge where you might have strengths in this space and where there might be some opportunities. Well, having a growth mindset is an important foundational element for you and your team. There's some other foundations we found helpful along the way. Whenever I begin work in a new space, the first three things I am looking for are where are we at currently? What's our current state? Where do we want to head? Where do we want to go? So, what's potentially our future state or our ideal state? And then, what are the gaps between those two spaces? So, getting our house in order, it could be about taking the work to the next level, adjusting efforts based on the changing landscape, starting something new, or reorganizing something that just might not be working. Colorado Access, there were some great things in place, and the work was viewed well by leaders across the organization. So our focus was really on leveling up the work that had already begun. We started off assessing current state by talking to leaders. So I met one on one with every executive and every director to get a sense of their goals, what's working well in the learning space, what are some gaps, what are some of their learning needs. We also did a organization-wide learning needs assessment to gauge satisfaction across the organization and get a sense of where people are at with the different competencies, what's their proficiency level with all of the Colorado Access competencies, what are some desired learning topics and potential gaps that they see. So once we identified those gaps by gathering all the feedback from the employees, from the leaders, and the current learning and development staff, then we started mapping out an ideal vision for the team based on all of that feedback and based on organizational, strategic business priorities. And we literally drew, here's some samples of us drawing our ideal vision. So we started off with a strategic planning meeting. It took about a half a day, a couple months into my tenure with the organization, and really took a time to map out what is it that we want to see in the future. And I highly recommend drawing this out. It really opens up your mind to all of the possibilities. And then after we did the drawing, we pulled themes from all of our ideal visions. And then we started digging into, okay, well, who are we and who do we want to be? What's our purpose? What's our vision? How do we want to interact with each other and show up for each other. And what came out of this is a True North document. So here's a sample of our most recent True North document. And this really has evolved from the first draft in 2019 as we've evolved as a team and an organization. And it's something that we revisit every year and adjust based on how we've grown and the direction of Colorado Access. And it's important that we stay aligned, not just with each other, but with the business that we support as well, because ultimately that's our goal, is to help the business get to better outcomes. What is great about exercises like this is that we then spread them to other teams. We do the work ourselves and then work with other teams to establish similar True North foundations. If we want to help other teams establish strong culture, we need to practice what we preach. So again, this has evolved over time. The vision, or creating a positive learning culture, that has something that stayed with us over the 5 years, but our mission has evolved over the years, and those team norms, as we've gotten new team members, that has also evolved. So it's a great thing to establish in the beginning and then also check in and adjust along the way. Looking at your handout again, do you have this? Do you have a vision and a mission, purpose? Are there certain foundational elements here that potentially you could implement with your teams? Go ahead and pause and take some time to answer those questions and mark that in your worksheet. This True North was one way to help us be intentional about the direction of our collective growth. While I had led learning teams previously, I think our focus on team learning lacked structure and purpose, and this was really an opportunity to manage that better. Once that True North was done, we started working on other ways to strengthen our team, and being purposeful about our growth as a group uncovered 3 main focus areas for us. One is around psychological safety. How do I, as the leader, foster a psychologically safe environment for the team so people feel comfortable speaking up and taking risks without feeling shame or punishment? How do we establish and strengthen trust? How do we best work together? This was especially important as we added 2 more team members to the first 3. So when I first started in 2019, there were 3 of us, and we had 2 open FTEs we were adding. So we wanted to create a really strong foundation with trust, psychological safety, and collaboration for our team. To help strengthen those 3 areas, we established several interventions throughout the years. And I'm going to share 4 with you that I believe made the most impact on getting our house in order as a team. They're a mixture of individual and team growth interventions, and all of them can be used internally in your learning teams, and they can be used with teams that you work with. And as we're going through this, again, come back to that handout. You can mark items that you want to implement yourself and make notes along the way. So one of the things I'm going to share with you is a standard team meeting check-in that we focused on. Great way to strengthen trust and psychological safety on the team. We had quarterly retreats where we focused not just on strategy and goals, but on our development and connection as a group. We established peer-to-peer learning sessions, an opportunity for members on the team without me as their leader to be able to connect, grow, learn from each other, and strengthen trust among each other. And then one-to-one quarterly professional development, career development conversations that I had with everyone on the team. So digging into our first team meeting check-in, this is something that we call Team Sanctuary. It's something that I brought from a previous organization. There was a youth correctional facility that we worked with, and they had established what they called Sanctuary, which was from trauma-informed care. That's where they had pulled it from. And the youth correction officers, every morning with the youth, they would do a check-in and say, how are you doing? How are you feeling in 1 or 2 words? What's your big goal for today? And how can I support you? So it was something that they did every morning to do a quick pulse check. And we took that and brought that into our team meetings. Now, we weren't meeting every day. We were meeting weekly in the beginning and then every other week after that. And we shifted it a little bit and took a little bit more time with it. found it to be something really helpful in establishing some initial trust and fostering psychological safety among the team. So we would always start off with, how are you doing? How are you feeling? Give space for people to share that. It's a nice pulse check. What's your big goal for the week? Sometimes individuals would share more than one goal, something that they really wanted to focus on accomplishing. How can we support you? And really pushing people to pick something tangible, not just, oh, you all are supporting me already, but something, hey, I need feedback. Can you look something over? Can you cover this session for me? Because I'm going to be out of town. So really having something tangible with that. And then over the years, we added this last one so that there was more learning that was happening in these sanctuaries. What is the one thing that you learned this week? Now, this takes us every other week about 20 to 30 minutes to do because there's 7 of us on the team. And I know that might not be feasible for everyone, and you might experience some resistance. So some tips and potentially some alternatives to help you through that. One is experiment. We're just going to experiment with this. We're just going to try this out in team meeting for the next couple of months. We'll collect some feedback along the way and make course corrections if we need to. You could just start with one question. Maybe we just do the how are you doing? How are you feeling? And see how that goes. Maybe we alternate because we have a larger team, or oh no, we can't afford 20, 30 minutes out of our team meeting. So maybe we rotate the questions each team meeting and focus on something a little bit different. Or we use a prompt, something to help people. So the first question, how are you doing? How are you feeling? For some people, they might experience that as, or do you really want to know? Is it okay if I just say that I'm good or I'm fine? That's certainly some of the experience we had in the beginning with people not sharing if they could say actually how they felt. So using a prompt like the emotions wheel, where instead of someone saying, oh, I'm good or I'm fine, they could say, well, actually, I'm a little anxious or nervous. I have this presentation that I have to do, and I didn't have as much time as prepare as I wanted to, or I'm feeling really playful today and a little bit silly, or I'm feeling frustrated. I have this project and the scope keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So I'm feeling a lot of frustration right now. Again, it gives people a prompt of some specific feeling or emotion that they can share, besides the generalized fine or good that we sometimes hear. Or you can have picture prompts. So instead of having people share an emotion, you could say, what giraffe are you today? Are you feeling a little sleepy like number 4? Feeling a little silly like number 2? Maybe you're a little grumpy like number 5, but it's kind of a fun, quick way to do a pulse check. Certainly something that you could use in workshops and with other teams as well. The second intervention that I'm going to share with you is our team retreats. We started off as a new team of 5 in January of 2020 with an all-day retreat that was focused on team building using a tool called Insights Discovery, very similar to DISC, Myers-Briggs, if you're familiar with those tools. And then we focused the rest of our time on strategic planning. Earlier in 2019, towards the end of that year, we discussed psychological safety as a group. And I've asked everyone to take an assessment that I learned about from a class that 2 of our team members had taught. And it uncovered some opportunities to strengthen this on our team. I knew that creating a safer space for the team would lead to stronger innovation, more engaged staff, better outcomes. This is all from the research of Amy Edmondson. If you're not familiar with her, the Fearless Organization, highly recommend that book. And the retreat was one way to start establishing more connection, trust, and safety among the team, not to mention space for us to stay focused on the needs of the organization. And it was a little bit later in 2020, us continuing to do these check ins on psychological safety and collect feedback, that we decided to make our retreats more regular than once a year. Once a year just was not enough time for us. There was never enough time in our team meeting. So we all agreed to do quarterly, all day events focused half the day on team learning, team connection, team building, and then the other half of the day on strategy. The third intervention that I'm going to mention is peer-to-peer coaching. This was developed from one of our team retreat conversations. The question was posed, how do we ensure we are creating space for our learning? Because we tend to put ourselves on the back burner. And so the group decided, well, let's get together just as a peer group and use this as an opportunity to learn more about training design, learn more about coaching and mentorship and learning programming, and talk through those different things, adult learning theory, and actually dig into the topic a little bit more. So initially, individuals were rotating and they each took a different topic that they would share back with the group. This agenda that you're seeing, this sample agenda, has evolved over time as they've continued to check in and collect feedback. So one of the options that they have for each of the agendas is a project sanctuary where somebody can talk about a project that they're challenged with, or maybe a milestone that they reach that they're excited about and they want to share with the team. What is that project? What is the milestone? What is the challenge? And where can we as a group support you? Then whatever the main topic is, it could be that I want to talk about adult learning theory. I went to a conference or saw a webinar, and there's some really great tips that I want to share with the team. Or it could be that I'm working on a new project or new program, and I'd really love to walk you through that and get feedback from the team. Lessons learned. Maybe I participated in a project, an opportunity, and there's some good lessons, things that worked really well, things that didn't work well. This is a great opportunity to share that among the peers, and then talking through what's next. And the idea behind this is really to continue to promote that positive learning culture that we're trying to instill in the whole organization within the group, getting more into the details and the nitty gritty about work that each member is doing. And it was a great way to continue to strengthen trust and psychological safety among the team. And then the last intervention I'm going to mention is quarterly one-to-one professional and career development conversations. And this came out of feedback discussions that we continued to have throughout the years around engagement and how engaged people were, and continuing to foster that psychologically safe environment. Initially, we were talking about professional development within our one-on-ones, and it never seemed to be enough time. Sometimes we only had 5-10 minutes to be able to talk. It didn't seem very deliberate. So conducting quarterly one-to-ones where I, as the leader, and you as the director report, we are solely focused on your professional development, your career path. It really was just a great way to deliberately set aside that time. And what it also did was helped individuals hone in on their goals, their professional development goals and their career goals. Because for some of them, they didn't know. They didn't know where to go, and no one had really had that conversation with them. So we have a sample agenda up here. Some people, they came with lots of things that they wanted to talk about. We didn't even touch on this sample agenda because they had questions. They wanted some coaching. They wanted help identifying what their purpose is, what their values are, what their career path is. So this sample agenda is really if you find that you are working with an individual that just you don't know where to start. Okay, so here's some questions that I can ask. Is there anything that you want to focus on related to your development or conversation today? How about we check in on progress, on goals you have around professional development, career development, business goals, what's going well, what could be better, how can I support you? How are you utilizing your strengths? Can you give me some examples? Your career plan, are you progressing towards your vision? Are there any new challenges or barriers that are coming up for you? How are you applying what you're learning? What did you learn this past quarter? And then how are you implementing it? So those are some sample questions. They're all in your handout for you as well. But it was just a really great opportunity to focus on that individual growth and see the alignment and help build the alignment with the team's collective growth as well. With all four of those interventions, the biggest theme is time and space on the calendar. We've got to set aside time and space on the calendar for growth. And that is what has really contributed to our success with other teams. So I'm going to talk through some different tools that helped us with all of these interventions. along the ways. We used various tools to identify the best ways of working together and to strengthen connections across the team. And I have listed all these assessment tools in your handout with mini descriptions of each. These were instrumental in helping us build self-awareness, to know each other better, and work differently, figure out how we each work differently and to ensure that we are focused on the things that really bring us joy. So some examples of assessment tools that we use Gallup Clifton Strengths, which assesses top talents that strengthen you. I'd mentioned Insights Discovery. This is a tool focused on preferences around communication and how we interact with others in the world around us. We used a Thomas Kilmann instrument. This is focused on understanding conflict styles and where we might be over or underutilizing different conflict styles, and then how does that all come together as a team. We used a tool called Working Genius, which is focused on more on productivity and where do we find joy and energy in the actual work process. We used Enneagram, which is all about motivations. And then we used another tool called Standout. It's Marcus Buckingham tool, which really digs into how others perceive you and how you really stand out in your role. So we did a variety of these assessment tools over the years and really ingrained them into how we conducted work and collaborated with each other. What's great also about these tools is we would use them internally on our own team, and then we would use them with other teams that we worked with. We, as an organization, have done a lot of impact teamwork, and it was great to be able to practice as a learning team and then go out and implement it with other groups and workshops where it made sense. Really took a strengths-based approach to how work was delegated, honoring where people thrive and want to continue to grow. And that having those assessment tools was really helpful in being able to follow through on that. Setting aside money for individuals to get certifications, attend conferences, or participate in external learning. Each person would develop a goal around their growth and tie it to a strategic or business goal or priority. So we were always still focused on outcomes for the organization. And then we looked at ways to measure within the team, are we increasing psychological safety? Are we increasing trust? And are we increasing engagement around professional development? So with trust, as we tested and evaluated that on the team, everyone on all of the statements around trust, trusting leader, my leader trusts me, trusting peers, my peers trust me, received a 4 or higher rating out of 5. And with psychological safety, we tested this on and off for several years. And the one statement that really stands out to me where we made the most improvements is in this team, people are accepted for being different. We went from a 3.6 out of 5 to a 4.5 out of 5, which I think was just a great result. And then around engagement, there is a question in our engagement survey that we send out to all staff a couple times a year. And it's, I am given a real opportunity to develop my skills at Colorado Access. Now, our learning and development team, we're small, we're only 7 people, so we tend to be grouped with other groups. And what we saw over time is we went from a 45% favorable rating, meaning individuals scaled it at a 4 or 5, the highest ratings out of 5. We went from 45% favorable to 88% favorable. So that was a huge jump in engagement results. Now, while we saw improvements within our learning team, great, but what about the organization? How did this impact the rest of the organization? So I'm going to share some key metrics in that space of how we made impact with the rest of the organization. The learning needs assessment that we sent out the beginning and then every year after I started working at Colorado Access, there was a question around learning satisfaction. How satisfied are people with learning at Colorado Access? And that went from a 3.19 out of 5 in 2019 to a 4.2 in 2022. Saturation rate. This we define as individuals participating in at least one elective learning opportunity in the organization. So what percentage of our employees are participating in that. And we went from a 67% saturation rate in 2021, meaning 67% of our organization was participating in at least one elective learning opportunity, to 84% in 2023. We also saw engagement with the entire organization around that professional development question that I mentioned. I'm given the opportunity for professional development at Colorado Access. We went from 61% favorable in 2019 to 83% favorable in 2023. Participation in our learning opportunities. We originally looked at participation as the number of workshop attendees, individuals that will come to workshops, but our programming is so much bigger than that. We have mentorship opportunities. We do a lot of learning around intact teams. We have a leadership academy program. We have LinkedIn learning opportunities. We have book club. So when we look at the beginning, when we didn't have a lot of that programming, and we look at how much of the organization was participating in learning opportunities, while our median workshop attendance has remained steady, we went from only working with one intact team in 2019 to 34 teams by 2023. So that's 80% of the organization that were participating in elective learning and development as a team. We also had, over the 4 years that we had the program, 4 years that we had the program, we received 90 requests for individual customized learning plans, which is approximately 20% of the organization. And when we started our mentorship program, we had 10 pairs of mentors and mentees. And in our most recent cohort, we had 30 pairs participate. So we definitely saw participation increase over time. And then we expanded the team. We went from 5 FTEs in 2020 to 7 FTEs in 2022. So these were brand new positions that we created. There's definitely some lessons that we learned along the way. For the peer-to-peer coaching structure, there were changes in the schedule for that. It started off meeting a couple times a month, and that went to monthly. It was shifted from not just talking about different learning topics, but also, can we bring specific projects that we're working on and use that as an opportunity to talk through things? And that continues to evolve as individuals have increased their trust in psychological safety. They've also increased the ability to give more timely and constructive feedback when something's not working. The quarterly retreat agenda, we have experimented with shifting. We originally started off with strategy in the morning, and then we would do our learning development connection time in the afternoon. And people were saying, well, I'm so exhausted. I want to connect, I want to develop and learn, but I just don't feel like I have the capacity for it in the afternoon. What if we switch? So we've played around with that. We've also played around with not just me as the leader, mapping out what that agenda looks like, but also having other individuals lead, coordinate, and facilitate that agenda. We've experimented with having outside facilitators. So when we have a team retreat, it tends to be us facilitating because we're the individuals in the organization that do that. We facilitate retreats for others and facilitate learning for others. So we've experimented with having an outside facilitator that can be cost prohibitive. So could you even borrow a facilitator from the organization, one that you didn't, that's not external and you don't need funds for? And then flexible structure. Meet people where they're at, keep collecting feedback, and being open to adjustments. So we believe in creating some structure and some guardrails, but knowing that we have to be agile along the way. And one of the ways that we do that is we do a meeting audit every year to check in on if we're meeting enough, too much, and if our time together is still valuable, or if we need to make adjustments. And although I'm not currently with the organization anymore, the learning continues with that group in 2024. There's 3 focus areas that they are still working on and growing as a team. One is that co-leading of strategic priorities. So everyone on the team now is with a partner leading one of our strategic priorities. It's a great way to build trust with another member and continue to strengthen trust with another member of the team, and then learn what it is to really lead the big buckets of priorities for the organization. Tapping into mindsets, growth mindset was one of those that I mentioned, and us continuing to strengthen that. And then having partnerships, or success partners. So being paired with someone on the team that can help with empowering, can help with supporting and advocating for the other person's growth. And it helps with holding each other accountable to the growth, the collective and individual growth journey that everyone is on. What other ways can we prioritize investing in our team's growth? Here are just some final tips that have helped me and the team at Colorado Access. Mark down in that handout items in your participant guide that you want to start implementing for yourself. And the first one is really changing your relationship with time. Shifting your focus from urgent tasks to important, leading with important first, prioritizing those things that align with your long term goals, your values, allowing for more meaningful and impactful use of your time, and also blocking out time on your calendar. One way to combat the time constraints you might be feeling or prioritizing others is actually creating space on your calendar. This is something that I do every week. I have time blocked off at the beginning of the week and the end of the week. That is for growth, it's for thinking time, it's for strategy time. That is my time. And I try to honor it 80% of the time, knowing that things do come up, but as much as you can try to honor it 80% of the time, you know you're going to have dedicated time for yourself and it's going to put your own investment in your growth first. Do not disturb. So if you use Teams or Slacks, even email, turning off those notifications during your focus time, during your growth time, during your learning time, so you're not continually distracted. Carving out money in the budget for certifications and conferences, that can really help with the lack of resources and even lack of motivation. If you know you have money dedicated for you, that can certainly be motivating. And for some of you, you might say, I don't really have a budget for self-development. Okay, well, we need to step into some creative solutions and leveraging available resources because there's stuff out there that's low cost or no cost. So some ideas could be that you split who goes to the conference each year. So here's some pictures of the team going to the ATD conference, and we split it. So half of us go in person each year, and the other half either don't go or they attend virtually. You could also have the whole team go virtually, or one of the organizations I worked with, we all just swapped. There were 4 of us on the team, and each year, one person got to go, and we would just rotate that. Or you could even just signing up for memberships for ATD, your local chapter, national membership. They're relatively low cost, and you have access to a lot of free resources. Training Magazine Network, you can sign up for that for free, and they have free webinars that you can take advantage of. Break Carbon, if you've never tapped into them, you can get free PowerPoint design webinars. Canva is a great design tool, and you can get a free account for that. There's Training Industry, there's OD Network. You can join LinkedIn groups. You can apply to volunteer for a conference, and you typically get a couple of free conference days, or apply to speak, and you could get a free or discounted ticket for that. Library, podcasts, there's lots of those types of resources that you don't have to pay for. That standout assessment I mentioned, you can get it for free online. Gallup has these webcasts that go through all of the different strengths with the Clifton Strengths assessment, and they're available and they're free to you. So there's lots of ways that you can work around that if you don't have a big budget. I'm going to come back to strengthening your growth mindset. Cultivating a growth mindset and believing in our ability to learn and improve is essential for overcoming the barriers of self-doubt, of the fear of failure, stepping out of our comfort zone, all of that. And I believe approaching our work with this mindset not only accelerated our progress, but also enabled us to navigate setbacks more effectively. Stepping into this mindset also created more space for feedback that led to constant iteration and adjustments along the way. Recognize what's getting in the way of nurturing my growth, nurturing the team's growth. Build a solid foundation for your team by defining your purpose, who you are and who you want to be. Lean into creative solutions, experiment along the way, and tap into lessons learned to help you continuously improve. The key to developing others starts with developing ourselves. And by getting our house in order as a learning team, we can elevate the learning experience and drive impactful results for our organizations. I hope sharing our path with you has given you ideas that you can start implementing when you get back to your day to day. But I recognize that as soon as you leave this session, you will start to forget what you learned unless you can walk away with something you plan on implementing, at least one thing, and I pair it with some learning reinforcement. If you haven't filled out your participant guide with some ideas you want to turn into action, please do that now. At least one way you can invest more in yourself or your team. And also, connect with me directly on LinkedIn. Let me know that you watched this presentation, and I will sign you up for my weekly follow up challenges related to this content for the next several weeks to help you apply what you learned today back into your work. I hope to connect with you all in a future learning opportunity. And please give us your feedback. Let me know, were there things that were helpful? What did you like? And where can we improve? What are some things that you wish maybe I talked a little bit more? Thank you all.